Charukeshi for that inspiration, because there was a event last week. I know he's going to be very embarrassed that I'm going to say it again here. He's just completed 60 years as a writer, and one of India's most celebrated prolific writers, both in English and Tamil. And there was an event to celebrate him, and the event started and finished bang on time, and I thought this must be a cue for us to improve at Bliss Catchers. So thank you and welcome. As we get started, I want to make a difference. For instance, you can see that I'm standing instead of sitting. There's a very selfish reason for that. The AC is most powerful right here where I stand. So I'm just trying to cool off before we get warmed up. Okay. So as we start, I want to first thank Ashwin, T.S. Ashwin, and his entire team at Odissi for helping us, supporting us, not only the Bliss Catchers program, but the city of Chennai by continuing to be a bookstore of relevance, of substance, and of soul. So Ashwin, thank you very much for that. We have a small surprise for you. Can you walk up here? Ashwin and team Odissi celebrate 21 years of Odissi, okay, this month. And we thought it would be only right from all of us from the Bliss Catcher community that we gave something that's can be cherished by Ashwin and his team. So from all of us, a small token of our love. And you want me to come in the picture?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to be left out. Thank you. You want to give an acceptance speech? Thank you. He's so shy, he's so reticent, and we had to literally guard this story from him to get him to come and be in the limelight for a few seconds. So thank you, Ashwin. I think this the love you show us means a lot to us, and whoever we asked around, they were all delighted to put their signature there. So I'm sure it comes with a lot of good wishes from the people of Chennai.
You are walking around with the plate and watching.
So thank you. So for those of you, welcome sir, Rajan sir, please come and join us. Thank you. So Rajan is here, R.V. Rajan, and he's made a choice to come here because he was caught between two places. If he went to one of them, he would be misunderstood by the other party. So I said, we will never misunderstand, please come. So there he is, one of the most celebrated advertising people in the who has been in the business. And thank you, Rajan. So let me give you quickly an overview of the Bliss Catchers from a story that happened like last evening. One of our dear friends, and many of you may know this gentleman, passed away, Sriram of Great Lakes, Executive Director of Great Lakes, and also the founder of a customer delight measurement firm called Cloud Cherry. I had met Sriram 5 years ago, and we grew pretty close. And a couple of years back, Sriram left his job at Great Lakes to start Cloud Cherry. And we had a cup of coffee at the Chemia's bookstore, coffee shop. And I asked him, Sriram, so you're a little over 50, why did you make this choice to get into entrepreneurship? It's a very, very, very demanding game. And he said something which struck me. In fact, I wrote about it in my blog as well today. He said, Avis, I know I'm not going to be around forever. And this is my opportunity to go live the life that I always wanted to live, which is to go be an entrepreneur. And when the Cloud Cherry idea and opportunity came up, I just took the plunge. It's either now or never. And I want to start by celebrating him and the choice he made. Short-lived, he perhaps ran Cloud Cherry with his partners for a couple of years. He passed away last evening. But this is the essence of the Bliss Catchers. The reason why we do the Bliss Catchers is every month we want to bring you stories of people who have done interesting stuff in their lives, who have learned to go live the life that they always wanted to live. And this is inspired by Joseph Campbell's philosophy of Follow Your Bliss. So, with due tribute, last time I forgot, apparently the Bliss Catcher program last month, the 26th of March, was actually on Joseph Campbell's birthday. And we completely missed it until after the program. One of the guests walked up and said, "Did you know it was Joseph Campbell's birthday?" So, belated birthday, Joseph Campbell. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition. We have two wonderful people, and I'm going to invite them one by one to join me here. One is a very dear, both are dear friends of ours. One is Indu Balachandran. Indu ran away from a job interview at a bank, you know, at the Banking Services Recruitment Board, right? So if you see her story, and as she tells us her story, you'll realize that she's actually the person who literally chased her bliss. She didn't even follow it, she actually chased it. And she did it so well that she's not written just one book, but she's written 2 books. And she has been writing on travel for a long time. So, and with 30 years in advertising, I can't introduce Indu as well as she can introduce herself, but she is, to us, the most funniest lady on the planet. So, you will find Indu, you know, setting the house on fire. So, Indu, please join us. You can take center stage. Okay, I'll join you here. And with Indu, I want to add a couple of lines. You know, this is one of her books which is available on sale today. She's been generous enough to offer a 10% discount on it. So it's priced at $2.99, but you can get it with like 10% off. And this book, she's actually one part of her. I'll be very uncharitable, can I be?
Davis has no control over you.
Okay. I'm going to be very uncharitable. The real way to introduce Indu is to call her a thief. Okay? And I know everyone's shocked. You've never been introduced like this, right? I'll tell you why. And I'll read out. This is her dedication to me and Vani when she signed this book for us when it was launched. She says, "Dear Avis and Vani, I've basically written a book stealing all your ideas on following one's bliss. Enjoy the ride." So if I'm calling her a thief, I don't think I'm wrong. So we have a very honest thief over here, and Indu Balachandran, and she's going to talk about.
Absolute thief.
She's going to talk about how she has been able to hold on to what gives her joy, despite all the pulls and pressures of everyday life and advertising life.
Yeah.
Right? The other book she wrote, interestingly, is about the pulls and pressures of advertising. She calls it "Don't Go Away, We'll Be Right Back: The Oops and Downs of Advertising." And I have somebody who may join us this evening who's actually a big fan of yours. He visited us yesterday at home, and he said, "Who do you have tomorrow as your guest at Bliss Catchers?" And I said, "Indu Balachandran." "Oh, I've read that first book of hers. It's an awesome book." So he may join you, so you have a fan club already. Okay?
Thank you, Davis.
My next guest this evening is a man who I call a Chamath Tambran. Okay?
That's so fine.
So are you, okay? But you're a thief. No. You're a Chamath Tambran also, okay? He's Chamath for the simple reason that any parent would have loved what he did. He went to IIT Kharagpur, did mechanical engineering, and then he went to IIM Bangalore. I still remember what my mother told me when I couldn't make it to either of those places. "Nee Siriyana waste." For all that, I think you are qualified to be the very Chamath Tambran. 30 years with numbers. He did his post-graduation at IIM Bangalore with a focus on finance and systems. So 30 years with numbers, E&Y, and all that the corporate world can actually offer. And then last 10 years he's been teaching, he's been leading business schools, and currently he's the Dean of the Chennai Business School. But what got him with us at the Bliss Catchers is his love for music. He makes music and his love for a man that we all love, Ilayaraja. So ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you Sridhar Natarajan. Please come and see him over here. And as Sridhar joins us, just for us to get a glimpse of the music behind the man, okay, or the man behind the music, whichever way you want to look at it. Can we just play that track, Muruganandam? So before we start the conversation, I thought this is from his first album, Reminiscence, which is available here on sale today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Muruganandam, for playing that. So that's his debut album, Reminiscence. Now he's been a little more charitable than Indu has been. Okay, a little more generous. So he's offering a 30% discount on his CDs, okay, which are available at 100 rupees this evening. We'll get to the business part first and then we'll move into the conversation. Okay. So the CDs are available on sale right here at 100 rupees. And I have to give you some interesting insight into this song that just played. We have, if you love the voice, then the person behind the voice is right here. Savesh, our dear friend, who sung this song, and his daughter Dhwani has sung some other songs in this album. It's a fantastic album, and it takes you back to the, you get the feel of Ilaiyaraaja's music, but seen from a completely different angle, a different dimension. That's the way I read it as a Rasigan.
Yes.
Okay. So please, allow me to be tell you what I feel about music.
Absolutely.
So what's unique about this Bliss Catchers program is that we started for the first time without Ramesh arriving. So Ramesh, neenga 2 nimisham late agutenge vaati. Okay. But we started normally in almost like 14-15 months of Bliss Catchers. Ramesh comes and then we start. But this time we started little on time, so therefore he's like a couple of minutes late.
The old order changes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sitting on this side, as you can see. So what's also unique about Bliss Catchers this time is that we have two people who have not necessarily quit what they love doing in order to go do something that they love doing. Okay, I think it's the first time we're getting guests who are going to tell us that bliss and following your bliss need not be this or that. It need not be a choice between one and the other. You can go do what you want to do while you're still doing what you're doing. And especially Sridhar's story, we're all waiting to hear that. That's what is extremely unique about this conversation that we're going to start right now. Sir, Yadav, please come forward to the seats here. So let me start first with Indu. So I feel comfortable with you? Yes? Yeah. You'll have to switch on your mic also, Sridhar.
Yeah.
So Indu, first, my question to you. I want you to take everyone out here
Yeah.
to that building in Bangalore, was it? Where you were sitting outside the interview room of the Banking Services Recruitment Board.
Yeah.
What was running in your mind at that time? And did you not think of your family
of your appa amma, of all questions that you would be asked, and the fact that you might have been ostracized by your community for running away?
You know, actually, you really romanticized this whole thing, Ayugas, and I wish I could say yes to all of that. But it was actually one of those routine things that happened to that extent. We belong to that generation when it was, writing was always part of the plan, but then everyone did eco honors. It was the flavor of the decade, I think. So everybody was doing eco honors, and it was the coolest thing to do eco honors in Central College. So I did that. Then everybody went for the bank exams, so I went up doing those exams, and I was in Canara Bank in the final interview, and it was my turn, and I just had to say something, and the job would have been mine. And when I walked in and I saw these suited men sitting there, and I said, what the hell is this all about? Much like a Pond's B-flat tile film, which we made much later, where this young girl sits with this interview board in front of her. And when they said, so why would you like to join our bank? One of those stuck shirts asked me, and I said, actually, I wouldn't like to join your bank at all. I thought I was so smart, but I said very politely, and I said, they said, so why are you wasting our time? And I said, I really have no idea why I'm here. And I said, may I leave? And they said, please go. So it became a fabulous story for me to tell. I love stories. So when I got home, of course, I said, Ashadu, Paitya, final stage, and all the. But by next morning, it was an after dinner anecdote, I think, because no one could see me sitting in a bank.
So they accepted your verdict, your choice?
Eco honors and everything. Yeah, of course. They said, Eco honor ni எழுதலாம், but சரியான solid bank job முதல்ல புடிச்சு வெச்சுக்கோ. They all said that. But of course I said, no way, it's not part of my plan, life's plan. So I ran away. So
that's how it happened.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit. Obviously, your decision not to be a banker was driven by the fact that you wanted to be a writer. Was that clear at that time, or were you still figuring out, at least had clarity that this is what I don't want to do?
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. I knew a lot of things I didn't want to be, and writing is something that set in very early in life. And
what kind of writing was this? When did you realize this is what you love doing?
Whacked out writing, and blame for that falls on my dad, who always saw fun with words. I made 3 girls, and he infused that crazy thing of looking at words. He raised us very badly. He gave us Ogden Nash and Mad Magazine to read when we were very small. And if a word didn't rhyme, you just change the word, So a bit of talcum is always welcome. We grew up on this, and all nursery rhymes, ballads, Charge of the Light Brigade, the Highwaymen. We knew the spoofed versions because we read it in Mad Magazine years before our teacher taught it to us. So there's my sister laughing over there, because she and I, and my eldest sister Banu, literature was ruined for us thanks to her dad. So we saw fun in words, so there was always this thing of wanting to make somebody laugh was always in our genes, I think. And
with words, with writing.
With words. And I think we just drifted into writing. Writing was part of the plan not to make a career out of it. But then I stumbled upon a career that helps you have all this fun with words and pictures, and then you get paid for all of this, which is called advertising. So, despite doing journalism and sitting in Deccan Herald and writing absolutely whacked out headlines for serious political issues, I would have put a hideous pun in the headline. So the chief reporter called me and he said, you really should go into advertising. That's your calling. And he gave me an address. It's only about a year later I realized I was being sacked.
That was the most polite way to be sacked.
Yeah. I thought, wow, he's looking after my welfare and salary and all that. Much later I realized, oh my God, I was sacked that day.
So that's what writing did to you. It made you run away and it got you sacked. Right? That's really how it started.
Yeah, that's how it started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We'll come back to your story, but one important point I'm picking up here is that when you can only connect the dots backwards. So had it not been for the courage you showed to the board at the bank that was trying to recruit you, okay, because it wasn't a courageous call to tell them sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here. You know?
Yeah.
And had you not been told by your chief reporter that you probably are too good at exaggeration and therefore you need to go to advertising, okay, I don't think you would be sitting here talking to us at Bliss Catchers about an entire life of writing, enjoying the ride, enjoying the ride. So you can only connect your dots backwards, you know. And when things happen to us, as long as you take them with the flow, when you go with the flow, you can be sure that you will arrive where you're meant to arrive, not necessarily where you want to arrive. There's a big difference. Sometimes lucky people like Indu, you end up arriving where you are wanting to arrive, and that is also where you're meant to arrive. That's interesting. Good. So let's go to Sridhar now, and let me ask you to share with us your story of music. I mean, were you trained in music? How did it start? Your indulgence with music or your immersion with music? Where did it start, and where did the love for Ilayaraja come in? How did the kadal for Ilayaraja come in?
So it's a long one. So it started very early. I was trained mridangist.
Okay.
And I think my dad, he saw me playing on the table, and he said, look, if you have to make noise, why don't you make good noise? And he trained me in mridangam. And when I was learning the mridangam, I hated it. Because all my friends were playing the evenings, and I was here, you know, ta kita daga di kita daga. That's not really the kind of thing I wanted to do. But then the point came when I started enjoying the mridangam, you know. So then I realized, wow, it's a good thing. So it started with percussion. Then when I joined IIT, you said I was studying. Actually, one doesn't study in IIT. not professors normally don't study too much. We start studying after we become professors. So there I learned the guitar, I learned the drums, I learned music. My guru, Gun Jain, as I call it, and this gentleman over here with the foresight, Mr. Sabesh Subramanian. We had a wonderful team of musicians. Lucky. We had Sabesh in the singing, we had a good mouth organist, we had a good keyboard guy. I was a percussion guy there, I could play all the instruments. So a lot of music, a lot of understanding of music. And this guy, and then one more guy, you know, we actually had a competition called music composition. Because we had such talented musicians in my hostel. So because I wanted the competition to happen, I composed a tune.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, Sabesh had one.
Was that the first tune you composed?
Sabesh had one tune, Gun Jain had another tune. But if only 2 people participate, you can't have a competition.
Okay.
So you needed 3 or 4 people to compose. I said, chalo, let's compose. So I composed one tune there, long time back, which Sabesh sang. So what happened was, everybody knew Sabesh was a musician, a good singer, and they knew he was a good composer. So they actually told that you people cheated. Sabesh composed all the songs, and just because you wanted to have the competition, you asked them to, say that they are composed by different people. So, but we had fun, a lot of fun there. So music started there. It never ended actually. Love for Ilayaraja started when I discovered him by accident.
How did that happen? That's an interesting
I was actually
story.
traveling from Chennai to Mangalore, Mangalore to Jamshedpur, and the train stopped in Chennai for about 3 hours. So I went to see a movie. And the auto guy, I had become friendly with my neighbor. They said, look after my luggage, and I went to see a movie. But there was no movie show happening at that time. So I just walked around what to do, and I went to a cassette shop. And I asked him, is there any good cassette available? And he said, look around, and I found Ilayaraja 86 hits. So I went and asked him, is it a good cassette or not? Is he a good guy? That time I was shocked, and he said, what's wrong with you? So I realized something was wrong, so I picked it up. And then I remember the first song was Nilaveva. Amazing. I mean, I said, what kind of music? I never heard. By the way, Ilayaraja's music is so different from the R.D. Burman and the Lakshmikant Beharala that we grew up hearing. I said, this guy is amazing. Who the hell is he? And amazing songs. So how many times I would listen to that cassette again and again. I would come down to the station, buy batteries, and keep listening. Then
All
I
the way
came
to
home-
Jamshedpur.
All the way to Jamshedpur. How many times? And I came home. None of these people had heard about Ilayaraja. My sisters here sitting in front. She knew. So I told her to listen to the song. She said, "Wow, great music. Who the hell is he?" Some guy called Ilayaraja. I don't know. So that's what all happened. And then I realized that wow, if this is the kind of music somebody can do, I should definitely, compose differently.
Very
So he is
interesting.
definitely the person who motivated me to do differently.
Very interesting, very interesting. So he must be the only guy on the planet who stumbled upon Ilayaraja and who asked himself and asked others to ask themselves, who the hell is this guy? but it's an interesting admission you made. So what I pick up from your story is that I think if the seed of your bliss needs to be sown in you, it'll find you. It'll find you. And this often happens when you sit down and talk to people on how they chose what they are doing. Each one will have a story like a cassette shop story, where you're manifested in time to be at a particular place, doing something, and the connection will happen. That's something that I pick up.
Sometimes I ask myself, what if I'd seen the movie?
And not the cassette, and not
If
not
I'd seen
the
the
cassette
movie,
shop.
I still wouldn't have known there's a gentleman called Ilayaraja. I still would have composed a music that I wanted to do, but it wouldn't have been I wouldn't have been as happy with that music as I am today, thanks to him. He just took me to a different dimension. That's all.
So to continue the question on your music composition, were you at any time as you were graduating from IIT and then you went into IIM Bangalore and then you were picking up this predictable career path of being in the corporate sector, did you at any time consider being a music composer full time? Did those thoughts arise in you, and how did you deal with those thoughts, and why did you choose to follow the predictable path of a corporate life?
I actually wanted to run away and join Ilayaraja's band.
Wow, you should have met Indu.
After
You should have met Indu then. Indu, you could have offered in your consulting.
So yeah,
How to run?
actually I didn't know how to run exactly. Because I didn't know where he was. I don't know how to do. I mean, I said okay, I want to run away. I want to join his band, but how do you do it? So I don't know. And it's not that I didn't like my work. I thoroughly enjoyed my work.
So you love numbers,
I love numbers.
finance and systems
I
was
love
something that you
finance.
loved.
Actually,
Okay.
I love whatever I do.
That's a very rare quality. Fantastic. Okay.
I genuinely love it. So I go singing to my college. In fact, somebody complained that the dean is singing and the dean is whistling. So my governing council member asked, so what? Why can't the dean whistle and why can't the dean sing? So I'm happy going to work. I'm happy coming back home. In fact, when I come back home and I don't sing, the first thing Padma asks, are you okay? You're not singing. So it's I just like whatever I do and I like composing.
So go back to that point. So you considered running away and going and joining Ilayaraja's band. What prevented you from doing
I
that?
did. Honestly, I didn't know how to run. And
Okay.
I didn't know where he was.
Okay.
I just didn't know. And I even considered whether I should get married or not because my music was coming well. So I actually thought, should I get married or not? But then I said, no, I want to have a family of my own. So these are all choices I made. Somewhere in the back, I suppose it was always there. And some things have to happen when they happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll come back to you. Some things have to happen when they have to happen. Everything has got a space, a time, and life happens at its own pace. Brilliant point there. So the fact that you had to launch your album in 2015 November was something that was, up there, and your life just brought you to that point where it happened. Okay, but we'll come back to the album itself and why you chose to do it at that time, as opposed to any other time in your life. We'll come back to that, but we'll go to Indu now. Back to Indu to regale us with some more stories. Okay. So, did you see when you started advertising? Did you see yourself being satiated with your love for writing and expressing yourself in the rather, it's a very demanding place, right?
Yeah.
Advertising. Did you find it easy to settle down, and were you happy with the process of growing through it for 30 years?
Actually, advertising, you have a lot of people who just get burnt out and drop out fast, or they jump agencies, and there's a huge restlessness that sets in. But there's also a kind of strange overall picture of a bunch of, it's such a glamorous job and all of that. But I think for me, what drew me there, it wasn't the glamour of advertising, but it was the clamor of advertising. there was something that had to be worked out. It was a puzzle, you know. There's a brand that has to be sold. It has to be reached to a certain set of people. You can use words and pictures, and you can persuade them, and you have to say something, a story about yourself. And especially when you have to say it in a commercial, you have 30 seconds, and you have to say a story. You've got to get characters, dialogue, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you've got to have a twist in the end. I mean, it's actually, it's really can really pump your adrenaline up to solve this problem sitting in front of you. It's like a puzzle. And when I joined, I was really lucky to have joined HTA, now called JWT, with so many greats over there, you know, legendary figures. So it was so thrilling actually coming to work every day and seeing huge brands being created in front of you, all around you. And it was actually, it was an absolute trip. And the hilarious thing is, I'm the runaway person, and if runaway is a word that describes me, it's the exact opposite that happened once I got into advertising, because you could have made an ad on Fevicol on me, because I was just stuck. Finally got stuck in one agency for 30 years, you know. I never moved, so I used to often think there should be this Fevicol ad on me. Because, to that extent, I was a strange animal in the world of advertising, where people frequently are changing jobs.
Did you at any time introspect on this? Why did you get stuck with JWT for 30 years?
Yeah.
Why you didn't feel restless about your role in a restless industry?
Absolutely, yeah. The reason for that is actually so simple. Things changed around me, you know, that I didn't have to change, you know. I may have been seen as, you're still with HTA? Oh my God, you know, there's something wrong with me. But the thing is, there was, things change, you know, people change, clients change, products change. You move from, I changed branches. I started in Delhi office, I worked across other offices, Bombay. I've been in Chennai for most of my life, but when things around you change, and you find, you know, you shouldn't be this necessary that sets in, what am I really doing and what do I really want to do? And most of the time it's money. I mean, I may have been one of the poorest paid executive creative directors in the history of advertising because I didn't jump jobs, you know, because every time you just negotiate a higher pay and then you move on, you know. But I think I found so much of joy and fulfillment in where I was. At the same time, I am very restless. I do get bored easily, you know, and I cannot imagine being in any other job other than mine because there's always a change around me. You know, it's just spinning around me, you know. One day I'm working on chocolates, next day I'm working on a brochure for a valve, you know, and I've got to get to the bottom of each and you know, get to the mindset of each. And what advertising does is it makes you become so many different people, you know. So there's this lovely line that I read about someone, a writer, who said, I write because I want more than one life. It's greed, pure and simple.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you got that many lives through advertising.
Yeah.
Fantastic. The point I'd like to pick up from what she said, and I think Badri will love this. Badri is one of our regular Bizcatcher guests. He always keeps telling me, Avis, you need to find out what keeps people in the bliss zone once they arrive there. And I think Badri has a fascinating answer here. In the restless world of advertising, she found herself stuck only because she was enjoying every moment of it. And that sense of joy kept her going and kept her discovering the many lives that she got through the nature of the business. The nature of the business is it changes every day. with every client, with every assignment, with every campaign. And I think the core permanent, something that connected it all through the 30 years, were a sense of joy and peace with herself and what she was doing, right? And that's the true meaning of bliss. That's how you remain anchored.
There are, I mean, it's not just the rosy picture alone.
Yeah, I was coming to that. You were always, as far as I know it, and I'm quite old now. Okay, so as far as I know you,
you can see my birth certificate.
As far as I know you, I've not seen you at any time. You're restless, but you're a very positive kind of restless person. Okay, you've got positive energy. But aren't there dark times? Aren't there troubled times? Aren't there crisis, office politics?
Oh,
how do you deal with that? And has writing helped you then?
No, in fact, the fact that I used to write outside advertising, my whole spoofy book on the ups and downs of advertising is only because we have to. If we didn't laugh at our business, you'd be dead. Because there are such ridiculous things that make you sit till 4 a.m. because you're waiting for a client to say, I prefer yellow. No, I prefer red. No, actually make it yellow. No, do you think red shouts more in a bookshop or in a store? No, make it yellow. I mean, this kind of absolutely ridiculous things which are, which seem like life and death situations, people, tearing their hair, and sometimes it's such inconsequential rubbish, that we are putting all our energies on. There's also the huge thing of rejection, I mean, you slog, you create something, and there's a lot of hard work that goes, in an ad agency's life. There's so much of blood, sweat and tears, and then it's just flung away because the managing director changed and he just wants a completely new brief. And so you've got to really set yourself up for being beaten, and so there are many, many downsides.
So you take things as they come and you learn to laugh at them.
You've got to see the funny side of it, and that's all of it is in my book, but I would say it's Rajan would know only too well the horrors of running an agency, and you think you reach a high and then you're just down in the dumps the next day. So the only way to get over that is to laugh it off, and ad agencies are damn good at that.
So does the system kind of condition you to take it that way?
Yeah, there is. You have to just get on with your life and laugh and carry on. Or main thing is don't take yourself so seriously. I mean,
I was coming to that. Yes.
Yeah, it's simply not the end of the world. If something, if you didn't have that product out or that campaign out by the next day, it's a measure of not taking yourself too seriously and being in the moment. But I think all of us recall truly wonderful advertising that we see on TV, don't we? And you see it all there in its finished form, and it's playing for you, and the chuckle you get, and you think, my God! I mean, I again and again thrown by the amazing power of a wonderful film set in 20 seconds, and so there's so much that actually went behind that, with so much of something that just sparked up from some incident in someone's life. I put my life over and over again in the TV commercials that I've put in. I worked with A.R. Rahman on 7 jingles, when the time when he was just a teenager. And I mean, this is some story I'm going to tell my grandchildren, that I had the nerve to sit in front of Rahman, give him a set of words and say, I've got a tune in my head, can I just hum it to you? And he's grinned and said, yeah, carry on. Okay, ping, ping, plong, yeah, something like that. I mean, advertising gives you these amazing, amazing brushes with superb talent, I mean, the stars of Bollywood or our own, I mean, A.R. Rahman, the moments we've had with him are something absolutely outstanding.
I'd like to point out to look at the passion. I let her speak because I just want any of you who are aspiring to be in advertising or anyone in
the family that wants to be in advertising, be in creative expression. Look at the passion there, you know, the way she owns it even after being out of the business. The way she owns that life that she's lived and the way she's enjoyed it. I think this is what bliss can do to you. It'll take away all the stresses. The stresses will be there, but they won't impact you. And it will get you to enjoy the process. And at the end of the day, it's the process that of the journey of life that you've got to learn to enjoy. You cannot predict where things will go wrong or where things will go right. But you can at least predict how you are going to live through that journey. So thank you for sharing that. I want to come back to your book in a little while, the book that we have here, Runaway Writers, because this is the story of 3 people who go on to follow their bliss. So I want to come back to that, but I'm going to go to Sridhar's story for a few minutes now and ask Sridhar, did you at any time during your 30 years up until you decided on bringing out Reminiscence, did you at any time regret not having been a music composer or not having taken, I mean that's the wrong question because you are a music composer, but not having taken up music composing as a mainstream career? Did you at all regret, were there dark moments of self-doubt and self-pity?
No.
How did you deal with those thoughts? Did they come up at all or they didn't come up and you had a different way of dealing with it?
I remember, I never wanted to, I didn't want to become popular. I just liked to compose, that's all. And I was always composing. I didn't publish it, but the tunes that I published in Reminiscence now were composed in 2002. The first song in that album was composed in 1998 or 99.
Wow.
So I'm saying that the composing was happening all the time. I did want to publish it at some point in time, that got delayed. So the composing never got delayed. And I was always dabbling in music. Either a music program somewhere. I remember in Saudi Arabia, we conducted a large orchestrated program. I was called the music director there because I had a lot of fun in picking up the notes, picking up the chords. And obviously all the songs were composed by Ella Raja. We kind of 14 or 15 songs. So I understood his music so well because I used to go and pick up the bass notes, the chords, and wow, it was so nice. So I was enjoying myself. The publishing did not happen because again, I didn't know how to publish it. And my good old friend over here, my foresighted friend, Savesh, he once suggested to me that why can't you meet this guy in the studio, Surang studio? He would do it for you. And that again I didn't do anything about until we had a program, IIT Kharagpur, that one guy, I think Anirudh or somebody, he wrote a book on RD women. So there was a show there and Savesh asked me to play the guitar for him, so I said I agreed to. And the practice session was held in Surang. So these are all coincidences, you know. Had the practice been held somewhere else, I wouldn't have talked to that guy. So Sendil was hanging around there, so I told Sendil, boss, I have this thing, can you help me? He said, yeah, I can. So that's when the seriousness started. I said, okay, it can
And
be
which
done.
year was this?
That was just, maybe, this was November, that must have been Jan, Feb, March 2015.
2015. Okay. Before we continue, I want to actually pick on the first point you made, that I didn't want fame. It wasn't about becoming famous. It wasn't possibly about becoming famous and rich, because composing music, becoming a mainstream composer is a big career in itself. It's a career break if you can get it. It was the joy of composing music. The album came later, but the compositions never stopped. And I think this is a very, very valuable insight into the journey of following one's bliss. And if you're talking about the R.D. Burman event happening and you playing the guitar and making it there to play it, which led you to the person who helped you come out with your album, I think that's what really Campbell says when he says, follow your bliss and doors will open where you originally saw walls. And only you can see those doors. So it's about the process of following the bliss that leads to the opening of the doors. And our job really is to go after that sense of joy. And if you're getting it and you got it, despite being in another career and enjoying both, I think you're very blessed. You're honestly very blessed. So tell us about the process of giving birth to Reminiscence as a finished album. Was it a very demanding process? How did you put everything together?
See, the good part was that the songs were already there, and what was not there was the lyrics. So, okay.
So the compositions were there, but you didn't have lyrics to go with that.
I didn't have lyrics. So the thing is, my Tamil is weak, and in the year 2002, I went.
Just for the benefit of the audience, he grew up mostly in North.
I'm a Bihari at heart.
Bihari at heart, and he went to Kharagpur, and his love for Ilayaraja's music overrides his knowledge of Tamil as a language. So even now you can't read Tamil or.
No, I can read it, but I can't understand.
You can't understand sometimes. Okay, please continue.
For example, we saw Terry the other night, my wife and I. So then she asked me what is the meaning of Terry. I said I have no clue. But we saw that movie for 3 hours. Then I had to ask my student the next day, boss, what does Terry mean? So he said it's some spark or something like that. Okay. I didn't see any spark in the movie. That's good. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't know what Terry was. So coming back to this, it was the tunes were ready. I had an amazing friend who, actually that album had 8 songs, and all the 8 songs, the words were written after the tunes had been composed. And if you see the wonderful fitment, you would never know. I don't know if you heard a song from, I think, Madhumati, Zulmi Sang Ankradi.
Yeah.
If you listen to the song, no, you see how well the words and the music have blended. So I always wondered, wow, what wonderful music that Salil Chowdhury was, if he could compose music to those words and it just fitted well. This has been done reverse engineered, but again one would never know that it's such a beautiful fit. So my challenge was that I had to trust somebody to write lyrics that match the tune. I could do a little bit of changes, but I couldn't change them radically. And so that was the first challenge. The lyrics came out well. The second challenge was the recording. Samesh is a good singer, didn't take much time with him. Some of the singers were not very good, so we had to work on them a little more. Some were not available, studios were not available, and I was working. So in that entire exercise, it started in May 2015, ended November, I only took 3 days leave.
Wow.
All the other things had
So you kept your day job and you did this?
Yeah, I finished at 5:36 and then went. The recording would end at 9:30. I stayed awake till 4, 5 in the morning, finishing my work for the recording, but I would go to work. So I mean, it was tremendous hard work. If I was not the dean, I could have taken it. I loved it and I knew that I was required. So managing both was a little bit of a challenge, and I must...
Ever felt fatigued during this process?
No.
Look at that. That was that's the learning for us. So when you do what you love doing, the body copes. The body copes. So where does fatigue come in? There are 2 kinds of fatigue. One, you get tired at a very mind level. You get very tired. You get beaten if you're not doing what you like doing. And the second is the body. And I think the body always responds to a joyous mind. And that's the learning there. I have one question for you. I think you answered it before, but let me ask you a more pointed question. Does it at all affect you that in a world where all the music today is on platforms that are digital, okay, and you've chosen a very conventional medium to launch your music, which is the audio CD, and the fact that you don't have, as we speak, you don't have the reach to get to audiences. Does it at all affect that your music will not reach too many people? Have you ever thought about it?
Possible. And
does it affect you, the fact that you...
It doesn't affect me, but I would like more people. I genuinely believe my tunes are good. I'm the biggest fan of my own music, by the way.
Fantastic. You're a big artist.
So
You've got to love what you're doing. You've got to love what you're doing, and you've got to be completely brazen about it. And I think that's the first sign of following your bliss.
In fact, I know even from 10 years back, somebody asked me who your 3 favorite music directors were. And I would say R.D. Burman, Ilayaraja and Sridhar Natarajan. So that was, I love my music. And I listen to the music which is happening now. I realize that my music is good. So some of the music is much better. I said, wow. But many of the songs, I said, nahi yaar, I wish they could have done slightly better. So I would like people to hear it, definitely. And whatever I can do, I'm trying to do. But one doesn't really feel rejected. I've got a big stock of CDs in my house, and I don't mind giving it away to people. If they want to listen to it, they're most welcome. So no, I don't get dejected if I can't reach out to them, because it is not a commercial venture. If it was, I mean, I teach finance. There's a terrible ROI in this venture of mine. So ROI was not even thought about. So just I must get it out, and I'm aging, I must do that. I have 2 more projects that I've got to complete. So
2 more music projects.
No, two more objectives in life. That
Okay, okay, okay.
So I have to get one out of the way.
Okay.
I'll do the other two in the next few years.
Very, very good. I'll come back to you for my last round of questions, but I'm going to go to Indu and talk to her about this book.
Yeah.
So this book talks about three people,
Yeah.
Ambi, Minnie, and Bobby, and how they follow their bliss.
Yeah.
Right? And all of them are writers, and they're, you know, it's a beautiful story. Now, I see a lot of Indu in all three. Okay, was that intentional? And how did you? I mean, did you seriously steal our idea of following up with this? No, it's not even our idea. Campbell's idea. Did you actually sit up and look up Joseph Campbell and then build your story around it, or did you talk about your life experiences through these three people?
No. Well, let me say this. The whole book I just started with a random phone call by an acquisition editor of Rupa.
How do you find these people? They don't call me.
It's amazing. And when she said, I would like you to write, this was a brief. It was as short as one sentence. Please write a story about a Tambram girl. I think Chennai was flavor of the month all over India at that time. This call was from Delhi, by the way. A Tambram girl in Chennai who suddenly, I think she cloaked us in this very conservative, household kind of a girl she had in her mind. And she just gets into a very glamorous world and she finds amazing romance there. She wanted it to be a romantic book. And she said, okay, now write, okay? And it was, I was so stunned that, I mean, that's all I had. And in advertising, of course, we never start anything unless we have a really good brief. And this brief was just a little too brief. And first I said, oh my God, chick lit. And then, I had that posh look on myself. I don't write chick lit. And then a few of my friends who heard about this, including Sushi sitting over there, the last row, all of them just said, no one gets these phone calls from a publisher. You write and you chase publisher. So shut up and write. I mean, this was the best piece of advice I got. So, there's this lovely line, when you start out on the way appears, it's roomy. So, something like that happened, and in advertising, we always get the ending first, all great ads, we get the punchline, we know how it's going to end, and then we work backwards to, how did it get to that point. And here I was doing exactly the opposite, of what advertising training taught me. I had to start. So I had Ambujakshi Balan, of this typical growing up in Chennai, Aryapuram, near Boat Club Road, which is all my daughter. And then I just made it easy for myself because there's so many wonderful people I know, the funny things that have happened. And so everything started just getting into this book. And then my friend Mala, she fixed me down one day and she said, what's the idea of your book? I mean, what's the idea? I said, romance, girl, if I need something. And then she said, no, this has to be a co-idea. And that fixed me. And that's what I meant by I stole your idea. I think there was a lot of this, follow your bliss seemed like a wonderful thing to wrap the whole thing around, So once you have that, then the whole thing had so much meaning and worth. So I created, first it was just Ambujakshi, then I had two other girls, and I really made it easy for myself. So I made one, the advertising writer was Bobby. Ambujakshi, I used to be a Twitter writer of all things. Did you know there is something called a ghost tweet writer? Well, soon after I finished my book, I used to be the ghost tweet writer for the Taj group of hotels. So I had to keep saying smart, amazing things in 140 characters. And, it would be, I was ghostwriting for a lot of other people. I was writing their blogs, I was writing their Facebook updates. So I made Ambujakshi a ghost tweet writer for a dashing film star because I had to bring an element of romance. I have personally worked with amazing talent on our Pepsi films, which was my best brand ever. So I worked with Shah Rukh Khan, Saif, Priyanka, Kareena, all of them, Farah Khan. We worked with the best of Bollywood makeup men, cameramen, and then we worked with Madhavan and Surya. So we've had lovely brushes with Bollywood and Collywood. So I made my hero a Collywood star who hires Ambujakshi to write his tweets, and then she thinks, what a loser he is. He can't even write his own tweets. And it turns out he's such a smart guy and just too lazy and just a snob about being on Facebook and Twitter. I mean, what the hell are these tweets about, So Ambujakshi, so I was able to weave in a story absolutely based on all the things I knew. All
and
the
what you'd experienced, and all that you'd experienced.
All the experience. So
you'll find all through the book two factors constant. One is the sense of pace is set with a lot of humor, and the second is the sense of joy. The women are searching for their bliss and how they arrive at that point. I think that's Mala did ask you the most fundamental question. And I think since you talked about Twitter, it kind of rang a bell in my head, and I'll share it here. I think we all, if we need to simplify our lives, Twitter is a great tool. So the way I opened my Twitter account was we were beset with a lot of problems that we're still going through a lot of them. But I was like bringing in a lot of emotion into defining my problem. And the way I simplified my life was I would go to my Twitter handle and sit down. I would never post a tweet. I would say, what's my problem for today? And I would try to define it in 140 characters or less. And I often found that when a problem is sharply defined, the solution emerges. Similarly, if you really want to know what you're good at and what you love doing, if you love doing multiple things, if you just ask yourself, what gives me the greatest joy, and define it within that 140 characters or less, it'll actually work. It'll make your thought process that much clearer. So Twitter is not just some ghostwriting opportunity or some thing for famous people. I think it brings a lot of clarity. So thank you for that, for triggering that thought in me. Thank you. Sridhar,
yes,
back to you now. So do you still have music on your mind, as in the next album? What are you planning to do?
Actually, I wanted to write a book.
Oh, wow.
actually, I wanted to compose a song.
You already did that for Rahman.
Okay, I'll try with Dilip.
So then you can then tell your grandchildren that both of them are maestros who learned from you.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I sang tunes.
So I this year was supposed to be a book writing year, but then the tunes keep coming. So I have a strong feeling that tunes tend to dry up after a while. So I thought, as long as tunes keep coming, why don't I do the music one first? So I plan to release my next album. Actually, I'm working on I've come prepared with a song for my next album. So if you want, I can.
Sure. Please go ahead. Please
Can I sing it?
Yes. Please.
My Tamil is not very good, so.
No. Please go ahead.
Actually, Samesh refused to sing it for me, so I had to do it myself.
That's rare. Samesh refusing to sing. I know Samesh is very quiet, but maybe he wants you to be the star today.
My music is, he's a co-music director for all my stuff.
Do you want somebody to hold your mic for you?
No, I'll figure. Let me get the words first.
Yeah. So while we wait for him to kind of get ready, are you ready?
Yeah. I think they can listen to my. I don't need a mic.
Does he need a mic? Yeah. So two play from the Monica.
எங்கே நெஞ்சிலே கூட்டதும்
காதலாலே கண்டோரம் மின்னல்கள் பூமழை தூவும் நெல்மத்தை காதலா வானிலை மாறும் என்னுமே காதலா சோலையில் காதலாலே கண்டோரம் மின்னல்கள்.
Very, very nice. Awesome. Truly awesome. Thank you. So since we had Sridhar perform, we're going to have Hindu perform as well. I'm not going to ask you like what to dance like Zorba the Greek.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I could do that.
You could do that? No, I'm actually going to ask you a couple of quick questions before we go to the audience. Okay? So, you shouldn't think too much. It's like a quick rapid fire.
Karan Johar, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a basket, by the way.
We'll give you that mug. That's for sure. Okay? So, that anyway you're going to get. So, the first one. Supposing this was not a mixed, eclectic audience, but was a bunch of bankers, what would you tell them? What would you tell them?
Tell a bunch of bankers.
Yeah, you're addressing a bunch of bankers. What would you say?
Numbers suck. Try words for a change.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let me go to my next question for you. Okay. Why Tambram comedy? That's something that excites you. So why Tambram comedy? What's so interesting? I think there are a lot of Tambrams in the audience without sounding parochial. Okay, but we still want to hear what's so funny about us.
You know, I find Tambram weddings so devoid of humor. So, okay, let me tell you one incident. There was this rather dour uncle who always is so angry because our family always arrives late for weddings. And so we were rushing into this wedding of one of my cousins, and then he gave us a look late again. He said, "Isn't that late?" You know. So we were trying to avoid him, and he said, "The marriage is already over." You know. So he said, "Okay, we thought marriages last at least for a year." Oh man, I'm sure he meant the wedding ceremony is over. He said, "The marriage is already over." He said, "Marriage is over." That's the instant. That was the fastest time. You know, there's so much of hilarious hidden humor. So sometimes I think, what if I do stand-up comedy in a actual wedding? I just point out some of these funny things that happen.
Are you seriously going to do that? Will that be counted as
Yeah.
as your bliss?
No, it is a bucket list plan to do stand-up comedy, and last year I said I have to do before the year ends. So we went on a trip where I did stand-up comedy for the first time. The thing was, the bunch of people in front of me, which was my sister and all her classmates, were so drunk with Bharat or something, and they were laughing hysterically before I began. So I had this feeling that, wow, I'm such a success. With sober people someday.
You know, Indu tried her darn best to get me to prepare her for today. You know, she sent me emails, she sent me WhatsApp messages, she sent me threatening, suggestive mails. You know, I need to know what's going on. But you know, I think she's lived up to the first line of my email to many of the invitees here, that this Blisscatcher edition will be a riot, because she's set the stage here.
Still ask questions out of syllabus.
You know, I think I'm a life coach not for anything else, but for the fact that I've learned to deal with out of syllabus questions. We all go through conditioned schooling where we are given the lessons first and the test later. But when it comes to life, the test comes first and the lessons always follow. So that's on a more serious note. Hindu, yes, that's so out of syllabus, but you handled them pretty well. Now I'm going to go to the audience, and then we will come to our quiz questions. So do stay on. We have quiz questions, mugs going away, and a wrap up coming up. But the audience first. Ati, yes.
About the marriage, what do you call that, humor?
Yeah.
I think it's best to take humor in a Supandiish way and put it to make it more hilarious, make it logically comical.
What?
Supandi has a lot of logic.
Oh, okay.
Everybody who's read Amar Chitrakatha is a logical thing exactly like that, and it appears in a comical way. So it provides us a lighter moment. So use that platform to create the comedy.
He's giving you a suggestion. See, you've got consultants already. Your career is happening.
I'm going to steal that.
Right.
I'm a thief. I'll be right what others.
I have a question for you, Indu.
Yeah.
First of all, I have to tell the audience that Indu here never, loses a chance to, crack a, quick one, and we all laugh. So she had this Facebook post, when the Hindu launched their Tamil version. So there was this photograph of the Hindu, and she, how it's written in Tamil, right? It's written as Hindu. So she was like, thank you for launching a newspaper, honoring me. And I was like, only Hindu can think of that. So Hindu, tell me the truth. Ambujakshi Balan is modeled on you, not your daughter. Tell me the truth, out with the truth. In your book.
The fantasy romance, it all came from my
The fantasy romance with the Hollywood star, who is it? Out with it.
If you could morph Shah Rukh Khan and Maddie into one,
That's
my dream man.
Dream man.
Madly in love with two men at the
I
same
disown
time.
half of you.
I have one more question. Were you a runaway bride as well?
No. I'm a very chamattu. That's why all these fantasies are coming out in books. Yeah, really a boring chamattu girl actually.
Next question, please.
Madam,
Yeah.
you ran away from the BSRB. Did you have the feeling that you would become bankrupt anytime?
I'm absolutely, I really, I love what I do, but one of the things of loving what you do is you don't get, you may not get kind of money that you wish you had if you had only followed that banker path. So, you meet a lot of people who say, I love my job, but it's the work I hate, But actually what they mean is, I love the money, it's the job I hate. That's exactly what they mean.
Good point. Fantastic. Yes, Ramesh.
In the first round of questions, Hindu,
Yeah.
did you ever have an opportunity in your 30-year-old career to have a pitch for Canara Bank as your client?
No. Well, I've worked a lot on Citibank, I can tell you, which is the most aggressive people on the planet. Yeah, not Canara Bank, but I did work on Citibank a lot. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that Sridhar did not get into the band of Ilayaraja, because I know several of my known people who have worked for him, kind of thing. And I'm sure that you would not have a, been here had you been in the band, because the Raja, the halo, the godliness, because around his music and all that stuff is something different, and the persona within the studio, the attitudes and all those things are entirely different. So I'm happy that you didn't get into the band.
No, let me just say something. I don't know Ilayaraja.
Okay.
I love Ilayaraja the musician, not the person. It doesn't matter to me who he is. So I remember once I was coming in a Kingfisher flight, and it was one of the most turbulent flights that ever. It kind of shook in almost all kind of directions. And when the flight landed, we actually clapped for the pilot. It was that scary. And then when I come out to the check-in to take my baggage, I see Ilayaraja there. I recognize him from his back because I know him so well. So I said, boss, if this is what it means to see this guy, I would go to that flight many more times, because wow. So I went and immediately touched his feet. The guy got scared. He ran away. Actually, he said, who the hell is he? So I told him, Guru, I'm a big fan of yours and I'm also a music composer. I would like to be like you. So he said, as long as you stay away from me, I'm fine. So he was just saying, okay. So I don't know him. But his music is amazing. Had I joined his band,
Terrible.
I don't know. I may not have liked him. It's irrelevant. I would have loved his music, and that would keep me going. So it's not the person that there's no issue. I need not know the person, but his music is amazing. So that's what I want.
I think the point to be amplified here is also those, especially for the younger people that want to build careers on what you love doing, I think you need to have an anchor with a maestro in that field and have that Ekalavya kind of attitude. You know, that's what I can feel Sridhar's suggesting here, that it doesn't matter who the man is. It's the music, it's the musician in him that I worship. And I think we, you know, Ilayaraja is just a metaphor here. Each one of us will have our own Ilayarajas. And I think we have to bring that Ekalavya kind of attitude if you really want to bring in or invoke that quality and that talent from within you. You know, you have to invoke it. So good point there. Next question, please. Thank you, Ramesh. Next question. Uday needs a mic here up front. Okay, after Shekhar.
Yeah. What are your 3 favorite ad lines that you can recall? And also, do you remember, if I'm right, I think you won that slogan contest for Vivek Sethi.
Yes, how do you know that?
Right, because I was shortlisted in the 50.
Really? Yeah.
So, what did you write for them?
Okay, everybody please take out a pen and paper and write this down, because this could win you 1 kilo of gold, a similar line. Yeah, you know, people have all, in advertising, it's all about getting that calm gold, you know, it's the ultimate thing that you could get. But I was far away from that, but what advertising taught me is to write with these slogans, make it interesting, and write to a brief, okay? So, this was this Vivek, which used to have that, annual sale, and then you would have to write a slogan to say, I like shopping in Vivek because, and you have to write it in 15 words. So you did that, you participated in that, right? Yeah. So I have to give this to my daughter, who was a creative director on this, who said, Mom, write, this is your profession. So she said, write, and you know, and she was running around behind me with this piece of, that leaflet in her hand, and then she said, Amma, you must include all the appliances that they sell. And that's a house where you get everything. So, I mean, the briefing was terrific. So, I wrote it, and then she made me perfect it. She made me rhyme the first and the third line, the second and the fourth line, and we counted it was 15. And here's what I wrote. Now it shall be revealed. Okay? I like shopping in Vivek because, okay, I have to include all the appliances. Every time I watch TV, grind, cook, clean or bake, I keep saying secretly, thank you, Vivek.
Wow.
1 kilo of gold.
I think that's a crash course in how to become a millionaire equivalent, how to win one kg of
I
gold.
told you I was paid poorly. All the glamour and advertising.
And you made up with this.
I made up with
Was
this.
the gold price is good then?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
All that has got into my book, by the way. Ambujakshi wins 1 kilo of gold. It's the easiest book I've ever written.
Fantastic. Next question, Uday, please. You don't have a question? Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to ask both of them questions, and we still have time for one question from the audience. Both of you, and I think it's very relevant. There are a lot of young people over here. I'll come to you, Madhvi. Just hold on, I'll come to you. Both of you, and you also have a question. Okay. So both of you are parents. You've lived your life pretty much enjoying the journey, enjoying the ride. What do you think of? What kind of advice do you give your child, your children? Does it border on bliss, following your bliss, or does it border on earning a living?
I want to be careful of answering.
I know.
So one of the many complaints that my wife has is that I don't give any advice to my son. So there's nothing to me. He knows I'm there. If he wants any advice, he'll ask me. So I mean, couldn't I give any advice? No, I don't think.
Nothing I can remember.
No.
I think that's the best service parents can do, right?
Very helpful.
So we have a slightly different model where we say, here's the advice, unsolicited. Take it, trash it, up to you. And then I have my drink and go to sleep. So,
Yeah.
Indu.
Yeah, yeah, we are these cool new age parents which, we let them do what they want. And then of course, he said, I wish he or she would listen to me for change. And in my case, this curious thing, and maybe I should read.
Yeah, please read it. Please read it out.
I'll read the dedication of my book, which kind of sums up the whole thing. For my two most precious creations, Kadambari, who I thought would be a writer but turned into a banker, and Kanishka, who I thought would be a banker and turned into a writer. Okay, well, my daughter showed such signs of being an amazing writer at the age of 10, writing a whole naughty books and all that, and was such a state of bliss. And she said, never. And I thought I'm such a fantastic role model, because I was always writing something. I was bringing my work home, writing late into the night, and with that pink pad. And then I didn't realize she hated that pink pad, She used to throw it because she said, oh, Amma's always trying to crack some headline on the baseline or something. So she said, oh, it's just too much hard work. I can never be a writer. And she actually went on to be a banker. She's a banker today. And my son, whom we put him in Loyola College, Commerce, I told you the hilarious story. We got him at such a cost after great effort. And then he's just watched cricket all day long. And I used to say, in the money, all day cricket what are you going to do in life? And he works for Cricinfo as a writer. He loves what he's doing, and on his first day of work, he said, Amma, there's a huge screen in my office. And if I take my eyes off the screen, I might lose my job. So you cannot force anything.
I think that's on a lighter note, but there is a serious point here, right? And we must go back to and lean back on Khalil Gibran over here, who said, children are born through you, not for you. And I think the best way to deal with children is to let them just be. They'll find their way, and through their joys and through their crisis. I think all of us have evolved, because I met a very learned man who shared this yesterday. All of us have evolved because of Sodhane, challenge, giving us Vedane, pain, leading us to Sadhane, which is achievement, whatever we set out to do. And it's only through that, if you take it to a different plane, this argument, it's only through that sadhana that you arrive at bliss. So allow the children to go do what they want. They'll stumble, they'll fall, they'll cry, they'll moan, but they'll pick up their life and keep moving on. Parents will get perturbed, will get restless, because you don't want your children to go through a learning curve the way you have gone through. But that's the way it works. Everyone has to go through their path. And so it is with children.
My favorite line is, as you grow older, you must be seen, not heard.
You must be seen, not heard. Absolutely. Fantastic. That gels with what he said. No advice to give unless asked for.
No, but one of the grouse my son has is that I'm heard. I keep singing, he doesn't like that.
Madhvi, to your question, please. We'll take Madhvi's and Murli Krishna's question. Murli Krishna, right? Nanda Kumar, sir.
So basically, my question is, so you figure out what is it that you like doing, and you want to pursue that. There may be kind of whatever, you might fall down and you might get wounded and hurt and everything. So there is something that you need to close so that you can start following your bliss in the past. But then there are factors which where you don't have control over, such as external factors in the form of people who hold you back. And it is for the sake of people that you don't want to move ahead as well. So there's that point where you get stuck, where you know where you want to go or what path you want to take, but there is something that just tugs you back. So how is it that you just kind of don't feel guilty about leaving someone in a mess and then move onward?
Okay, real life situation, all of us go through this. The way to understand this is that if you plan your journey in such a way that you continue to pursue what you believe in, like the way, for example, Sridhar has done, where he's not left what he already is doing, which is finance and systems and being in the corporate world, and now teaching, to music, and allowing the compositions to flow through him at different points in his life whenever they came. So one is to keep doing that, but the deeper way, okay, there's a deeper way. I'm not saying there is a right way or a wrong way. The deeper way is to understand that things like others don't really count in your life if you don't want them to count. It could be however close those relationships may be. You live your life once, and the only person you are answerable to is you. So that's the deeper way of looking at it, and therefore guilt does not play a role. You can be responsible and plan your journey in such a way that you do pursue what you believe in, what you love doing, over a period of time. And again, it depends on what drives you. In his case, for example, it was not fame, it was not money, it was the joy of doing it. And he could do it being where he was, okay? But if you are stuck in a job that you don't like, if you're stuck in a world that you don't like, you have to take charge. And that comes through, you know, serious conversations with the people that are holding you back. If it comes to a point where the conversations don't make any sense anymore, don't have them, do what you want. But guilt, grief, anger, frustration, these things really don't matter. You know, they're the ones that are debilitating, and therefore you should let go of them. So don't hold on to them. That would be my advice, but on a more personal basis, I can talk about it offline.
Can I add a few points?
Yeah, please.
So, one of the things you have to keep in mind is that as long as you are not affecting the people around you, everybody has expectations from you. That is the sad part actually. So, if you can manage those expectations and still pursue what you want, I don't think anybody will hold you back. So, for example, if I had neglected my responsibility towards my family and tried to become a music director, it's not easy, I know. I may think I'm a great music composer, but the world has to accept me. So supposing I just decide to stop earning and not provide for a family, and then obviously there will be a lot of backlash. So the key thing is to have that belief that you can do it, but not compromise on the expectations of people around you, because if you got married, that is a choice you made. So you can't say now that my husband won't, my child won't. No, you took a choice to get married, and therefore you have to give that time for those expectations to be met also. So my thing is to manage people's expectations, but also pursue what you believe is you're good at, and then there's no problem, there's no negativity at all.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you for that clarification. Nandakumar sir.
What is
last question for the evening, please?
What is any example of your TV ad?
Oh no, yeah, he's put me on the spot. Well, wonder if you remember those coffee bite ads. Is it coffee or toffee? Those arguments, and it becomes a worldwide controversy where everybody's, they had so much fun. It was, sometimes we have what we call a campaign with legs. It just marches on and on and on, So even once it's set, I've trained so many junior writers, and they've come up with even funnier ideas than I have. So that coffee toffee controversy of Coffee Bite, was for Paris Sweets, Aquafina, the launch of Aquafina, and the number of Pepsi films with Madhavan and Surya. These are the ones that gave me the maximum amount of joy and brushes with amazing talent. Shankar, Ehsan, Loy, people like these. So a whole lot of ones. But I think my most famous line is what I just repeated, which won me gold. But otherwise, not really anything to set the Kuam on fire.
Thank you, Indu. So we go to the last segment, which is the quiz segment. So everyone, be ready on your buzzers, okay? And we have 2 mugs going away this evening, one from Indu and one from me. Okay? So, Indu, your quiz question for the evening.
Okay, here's a question. It was a copywriter and a novelist. Okay, who's the world famous novelist who was actually started out as a copywriter with Ogilvy? If you can't get it, I'll give you hints as we go along.
Susheila's got the answer.
Very controversial. Yeah. There she's got it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Sushila, there you win the.
Damn good.
So,
do you know what a famous line that he wrote, which you may have heard many times? Naughty but nice. You heard this expression somewhere? Salman Rushdie coined this for cupcakes when he was, when he was about 21 or something. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, would you like to just go up and give this to Sushila? So Sushila, you can have your coffee on the Bliss Catcher mug. Thank you. Thank you. So are we ready for the next question? I think this will be a sitter. If it is a sitter, then I'll have another question.
Are you allowed to also try for the mug?
Oh, no, you're not allowed.
Pick up one more.
Oh yeah, you have luck. But I want
one more.
She'll have one more today.
I remember once we won it.
Okay, quick. This one is a quick one. Okay, we're running close to the close, so this is a quick one. Who is Jnana Desikar?
Raja.
Absolutely, Raja himself. Please come forward, take your mic. Yeah, Ilayaraja's original name is Jnana Desikar. So Ramesh wins this Bliss Catcher mug. Ramesh, come forward, please. Take it from Mani.
So I want to
I didn't know it.
You didn't know this?
No, it's a music that matters, not the name.
So thank you, Ramesh.
Thank you,
Ashwin, please share, please give away the mugs to our guests today. Both of you, Sridhar and Indu, thank you so much for joining us. Yes.
He's giving away these beautiful Bliss Catcher mugs. So
to Indu and to Sridhar. Thank you for coming here and sharing your story. So I'll just do a quick wrap before we call it an evening. So I think two big points. One is that it's the music that matters. And I think the other one is run away if you don't believe in something. So I think those are my two big takeaways this evening. And both Sridhar and Indu, thank you so much. I think the way you shared your stories, there was so much energy. I'm sure people are taking away a lot from this evening. As we close, I just want to leave you with a thought, and this is a thought that kind of builds up on what Osho has often said, that life itself doesn't have meaning. You're born with nothing and you go with nothing. And in this interregnum called this journey of life, we tend to dramatize the whole journey. So Campbell actually built on it. Joseph Campbell built on this. And he said, life has no meaning, but you bring meaning to life. And somewhere I read, which kind of connected a thought here, that the meaning of life is to find your gift. The meaning of life is to find your gift. I think the gift is writing and the joy of expressing herself. The gift is music and the joy of expressing himself. So the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away.
Wow.
And I think that is where I will end life. That if you can follow your bliss and enrich people around you, I think you've got a good life that you've lived. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time. The books and the CDs are available here. And the next Bliss Catcher is on 28th of May. And we have two very interesting guests, Venki and Ramani. So please. Thank you.